Hey, no funny video this time. Nothing at all. But you know what? I'm still right over there somewhere. Somewhere here. Okay. Anyways, you don't care. All you know is there's a picture of this weird guy over here who's my teacher, and I really don't know what to do about this. So let's get into it. Section 2 is about the plasma membrane. Plasma membrane is the could be considered one of the most important parts of the cell because if you don't have plasma membrane, you don't have a cell. It doesn't exist. So let's get into it. Plasma membrane helps us maintain homeostasis. Now, if you don't remember, homeostasis is the ability for an organism to maintain a constant into its internal self. It maintains that constant, like us. Our body temperature is 98.6. Our body stays at about that temperature, and it cuts on. It heats up when it needs to. It cools down when it needs to. Plasma membrane does the same thing. So how does the plasma membrane function is one thing we're going to discuss here. And what do the roles of proteins, carbohydrates, and cholesterols, which if you don't remember, cholesterols are lipids in the plasma membrane. What are those roles? These are your vocabulary words. We have a review is the ion. It's new words. Selective permeability is huge. Phospholipid bilayer, huge. All of those are huge. Just pay attention to them, okay? Make sure you're getting it. This is a really good image of a plasma membrane. The function of a plasma membrane is the process of maintaining balance in the organism's internal environment. That's called homeostasis. That's what I was saying a second ago. One of these structures responsible for it is our plasma membranes. It forms a thin, flexible boundary between the cell and its environment. This right here, what we're observing, is actually a plasma membrane. It's a really good diagram of it. And if you look at it, you have everything that was before what we saw. So we have, this is the phospholipid bilayer. Phospholipid meaning that we have it's a phospholipid bilayer. Bi meaning two, layer meaning layers. So we have two layers that we're going to see. So what we have is we have first this right here. That's a phosphate head with two fatty acid tails. One of them should have a little bend in it, but this does not. It's kind of frustrating. But you typically has a bend in it, causing an unsaturated fatty acid tail and a saturated fatty acid tail next to each other. This right here is hydrophilic, meaning it can attract water. This in here is hydrophobic, meaning it pushes water away. That's a cholesterol right there. Cholesterols help provide structural strength into the cell, and these big things are called proteins, and that's what we're going to go through and look at more. So let's continue. Waiting. Just waiting. Oh, there it is. Okay. So the function of the plasma membrane, it is selectively permeable. Permeability means that things can permeate or things can diffuse through it, go back and forth through it. Like when you, I'm gonna have a good example. We'll see an example in lab. We'll do some dialysis type things in lab, and we'll check it out and see how things move back and forth through a permeable membrane. So cells, plasma membranes, they're selectively permeable. This means that they allow some substances to go through. They select some things they want to come through, and they deny other things so that they don't come in. They come through and out. They select things that stays in as well. So it controls how, when, and how much of a various substance enter and leave the cell. It depends on this plasma membrane. Right here's just a couple examples. Waste gets kicked out. And it keeps it out. It kicks out carbon dioxide. It lets water move freely through back and forth. Oxygen comes in and glucose comes in. So let's keep going. Plasma membrane. Plasma membrane is composed of a phospholipid bilayer. That's what I was just talking about. Phospholipid molecule is composed of a glycerol backbone, two fatty acid chains, and a phosphate group. So that's a phospholipid molecule, one phospholipid molecule. So let's see if we can zoom in on that. All right, so again, here's your phosphate, and the glycerol backbone is within this phosphate diagram. You don't really see it. And then we have two fatty acid chains. Now, we have, again, it is a hydrophobic region, which means, another word for hydrophobic means polar. If you remember, water is polar. Polar things attract each other, such as these phospholipid heads. They attract water. Versus nonpolar, like oils, fats, lipids, all those lipids right there, they repel water. Think when you put oil in water, they don't like to mix with each other. They stay separate, okay? Same thing, non-polar tails means that these here are going to repel water. So these want water to hit them, these don't. I gotta press pause, my light's about to shut off. I'll be back. So if I was saying what I thought I was saying before, polar versus non-polar, polarity, things attract water in polar, non-polar push water away. So this right here inside doesn't let water in. So it's a really good boundary. And that's selective permeability. There's your cholesterols. That's more cholesterols. These are all cholesterols. This right here would be our protein. So let's continue. Structure, we have other components. We have cholesterols, proteins, and carbohydrates. Some proteins called receptors transmit signals into the cell. Some proteins serve as support structures for the membrane. Others are transport proteins. They move needed waste through the actual membrane. So if you look at it, here's your carbohydrate, here's a transport protein, that's a membrane protein, helps provide structure. You have your polar heads, cholesterols, all those things. If you have questions, just ask, please. Come to class, draw a line right here in your notes and ask. All right, my computer's saying 1 frame a second, so either this might be really slow, I'm sorry, I might have to take the video out. But structure of the plasma membrane. Other components of the plasma membrane, these are cholesterols. They prevent the fatty acid tails and the phospholipid bilayer from sticking together. They keep them from colliding and causing issues. So they contribute to the fluidity of the membrane. So every time you always hear cholesterol, it's always bad, but this is something the cholesterol does what we want. We want to give a little more structure, a little more good thing to our cell. We want to keep it functioning appropriately, and that's what it does. Looks like I was wrong. That's a carbohydrate chain. I apologize. What I'm talking about is this right here. That is a carbohydrate chain. That is a cholesterol. Sorry, not perfect. I should have paid attention better. But there you go. That's a carbohydrate chain. And then you have your cholesterol providing that help in the structure. Other components of the plasma membrane, carbohydrates, they define the cell's characteristics. These things help us identify chemical signals. You're going to have something that will attach to them. It helps it attract a signal, and then it sends it to the rest of the cell through that carbohydrate chain. Most of it's going through a protein too. Proteins help with signals as well. Other components of the plasma membrane, this is a fluid mosaic model. It describes a phospholipid bilayer as a sea in which other components can float and move around. The difference, don't think of this like a solid object. These cells are permeable and move and are squishy and do all sorts of cool stuff. So this is a very flexible thing. Different substances in the plasma membrane, they help create a pattern of, or a mosaic on the surface of the cell. A mosaic pattern has like many different pieces that make it one whole thing. That's what it means. It's a fluid, meaning it can move. Mosaic, meaning it has many different parts. Model, which is what we're looking at, is this membrane. It's our model that we're paying attention to. We're not going to watch that. We'll play it in class. That's it. That's what a permeable membrane does. That's how it works. So please make sure you watch this video. Make sure you get those notes. Draw lines where you need a little help. Get it done. I'm checking it on Monday or Tuesday. Checking in on Tuesday. Unless you're watching this video in the next few years. Then I'm not checking it Tuesday. I might be checking it some other day. All right. Talk to you guys later. Enjoy the rest of your day. Video 3's coming.